When I finally came home after years of hard work, expecting open arms and warm welcomes, I found my room empty, my things packed away, and my place already taken by someone else, and that was the day I learned homes can forget the people who built them. 3 years ago I had everything. Sarah, my girlfriend of 5 years, had just moved in with me. We'd bought this little house together. Nothing fancy, but it was ours. She'd spend weekends painting the guest room yellow because she said it looked like sunshine. I'd roll my eyes but secretly loved watching her get paint in her hair. I was working construction then, long hours, good money. Sarah taught second grade and would come home with stories about her kids that made me laugh until my sides. We talked about marriage, kids of our own, growing old in that yellow room. But I got restless. It started innocent enough. There was this woman Jessica who worked at the hardware store I'd visit daily. She was everything Sarah wasn't. Bold, flirty, always dressed like she was going somewhere important. When Sarah would text me grocery lists, Jessica would compliment my work boots. When Sarah talked about parent-teacher conferences, Jessica talked about weekend trips to the coast. I told it was harmless. Just friendly conversation. Just appreciating attention from someone who seemed to think I was more interesting than I actually was. The first reel happened on a Tuesday. Sarah had made dinner. Some pasta thing with vegetables I couldn't pronounce. She was excited, talking about this new reading program at school. How proud she was of this kid who finally got through a whole chapter book. I was scrolling my phone, barely listening, when she stopped mid-sentence. Am I boring? She asked quietly. I looked. Her face had that expression. The one where she's trying not to cry but can see it building behind her eyes. I should have put the phone down. Should have said no. Should have pulled her close and told her about my day, asked about hers. Instead, I shrugged. Just tired. She nodded and went back to her pasta, but something changed in the air. Something I was too selfish to notice. The next week, Jessica mentioned she was working late inventory. Asked if I wanted to grab coffee after, help her stay awake. I said yes without thinking twice. We sat in her car in the parking lot, talking until midnight. She laughed at my jokes. She listened when I complained about work stress. She made me feel like I was the most fascinating person in the world, instead of just another guy with calloused hands and paint under his fingernails. When she leaned over to me, I didn't pull away. I drove home that night with my stomach in knots. Sarah already asleep. I stood in our bathroom, staring at in the mirror she'd hung there. The one with the little flowers painted on the frame that I'd teased her about. I looked like the same person, but something fundamental had shifted. I told it was just a mistake. It wouldn't happen again, but it did happen again. And again. Coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into long drives with no destination. I started working later, staying out longer, making excuses that tasted like ash in my mouth. Sarah noticed. Of course she noticed. She'd always been able to read me like one of her second grade books. She started asking questions. Where was I? Who was I with? Why did I seem so distant? Each question felt like an accusation, which made me defensive, which made me pull away even more. Or different, she said one night, sitting on the edge of our bed while I changed clothes. Used to tell me about day, used to ask about mine. Now it's like her somewhere else even when here. I could have told her the truth then, could have confessed and begged forgiveness and maybe saved what we had. Instead I got angry, told her she was being paranoid, told her I was working hard to build a future for us, and if she couldn't appreciate that, maybe she wasn't the person I thought she was. The words came out like, and I watched them land on her face like physical blows. She went quiet after that. Started sleeping on her side of the bed, a careful distance between us. Started making dinner for one and leaving leftovers. I told she was overreacting. That she'd get over it. That I was handling everything fine. I wasn't handling betrayal as that it changes from the inside out. Every lie requires another lie. Every secret creates distance. I became a stranger in my own, watching make decisions I didn't recognize. The person I loved most while telling I still loved her. Jessica and I started meeting at her apartment. Nothing happened, not yet, but we'd sit on her couch and talk about everything Sarah and I used to talk about. She made me feel alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. She made me feel like I was escaping something instead of destroying it. 3 months into this double, Sarah stopped asking questions. She'd come home from school and go straight to the guest room with the yellow walls, where she'd started keeping her laptop. She'd grade papers there, plan lessons there, live there. I told this was better. Less confrontation. Less guilt. I was wrong about everything. The night it all fell apart was a Thursday in October. Sarah had been quiet for weeks, moving through our house like a ghost of herself. I'd convinced she was just going through a phase, that things would go back to normal if I just waited it out. I came home late again. Told her I was working overtime on a big project, and found her sitting at the kitchen table with 2 cups of tea getting cold. She looked when I walked in, and her eyes were red but determined. Sit down, she said. We need to talk. My heart started racing, but I played it cool. Sat down across from her like nothing was wrong, like I hadn't been living a lie for months. I know, she said simply. 2 words that shattered everything. I opened my mouth to deny it, to ask what she meant, but she held her hand. I saw the text. Last week when we're in the shower and phone kept buzzing. I know about Jessica. I know about the coffee dates and the dinners and the long drives. I know you've been lying to me for months. The room went completely silent except for the sound of my world ending. Sarah, I can explain. Don't. Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands shaking around her teacup. Don't make it worse by explaining. Don't tell me it didn't mean anything or that it was a mistake. Don't insult me more than already have. I sat there, watching 5 years disappear in real time, watching the future we'd planned crumble like a house built on sand. I said, and meant it, which somehow made it worse. She laughed but there was no humor in it. Love me, have a funny way of showing it. Love me but been emotionally cheating on me for months. Love me, but lie to my face every single day. Love me, but made me feel crazy for noticing that the person I wanted to marry had disappeared. Each word was a nail in the coffin of everything we'd built together. I'm done, she said, standing. I've already talked to my sister. I'm moving out this weekend. Sarah, wait, can't we talk about this? Can't we work through it? She turned back to me and for a second I saw the girl who used to paint rooms yellow and tell me stories about her students. Then her face hardened again. Work through what? The lying, the cheating, the way made me feel like I wasn't enough. The way checked out of our relationship months ago, but didn't have the courage to tell me. She shook her head. There's nothing left to work through, already made choice. She was right. I had made my choice, over and over again, every time I chose Jessica's attention over Sarah's love. Every time I chose the thrill of something new over the comfort of something real. Every time I chose my own selfish desires over the person who'd given me her whole heart. I spent that weekend watching her pack 5 years of our into boxes, watching her take down the pictures we'd hung together, fold the clothes I'd watched her buy, wrap the dishes we'd eaten off for years. She moved methodically carefully, like she was handling artifacts from a that had already ended. I tried to help, but she wouldn't let me. Wouldn't even look at me. The last thing she took down was a framed photo from our 3rd anniversary, us at the coast, her laughing at something I'd said, both of us tan and happy and completely in love. She stared at it for a long moment, then wrapped it in newspaper and put it in a box with everything else. I really thought we were gonna make it, she said quietly, not looking at me. Then she was gone, and I was alone in a house that had been ours just days before. I called Jessica that night, thinking maybe now we could be together properly. Maybe this was all leading somewhere beautiful. She didn't answer. When she finally called back 3 days later, her voice was different, cool, distant. I heard about it in Sarah, she said. Yeah. It's over. We can actually be together now. Long silence. I don't. That's a good idea. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? What we had was fun, but is never supposed to be serious. We're with someone else. I was just, I don't know, helping figure things out, I guess. Helping me figure things out. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jessica, I left my girlfriend for. I never asked to do that. I never promised anything. I'm not looking for anything serious right now. The line went quiet again. Besides, she added, and I could hear the shrug in her voice, if cheated on her with me, what would stop from cheating on me with someone else? She hung before I could answer. I sat in my empty house, surrounded by the echo of 5 years of love I'd thrown away for 3 months of excitement that had just evaporated like morning fog. That's when I learned the first hard truth about consequences. They don't care about intentions. They don't care that didn't mean for things to go this far. They don't care that thought we're just having harmless fun. They only care what did. And what I did was trade everything real for something that was never real at all. The silence in an empty house is different than any other kind of quiet. It's not peaceful, it's accusing. Every creak of the floorboard sounds like judgment. Every empty chair reminds of conversations that will never happen again. I lived in that silence for 2 weeks before I realized Sarah hadn't just taken her things. She'd taken them from the place. The yellow guest room looked like a crime scene. Not because anything was destroyed, but because everything that made it home was gone. The paint was still there, but without her books on the nightstand, her reading glasses on the dresser, her sweaters folded in the closet. It just looked like a room someone had painted yellow for no reason. I tried to fill the silence with TV, music, anything. But noise can't cover the sound of own thoughts, and my thoughts were brutal. I kept replaying that last conversation, looking for the moment I could have said something different, could have fought harder, could have made her understand that what happened with Jessica was just a mistake, not a reflection of how I felt about her. But the more I replayed it, the more I realized Sarah was right about everything. The lying had become so automatic I'd stopped noticing I was doing it. Small lies, big lies, lies of omission. I'd been living a double so long I'd forgotten what truth felt like. And the worst part, I'd made her doubt herself. Made her feel like she was being paranoid when she was actually being perceptive. Made her question her own instincts when those instincts were trying to save what we had. 3 weeks after she moved out, I ran into her sister Emma at the grocery store. Emma had always liked me. We'd spent holidays together, shared inside jokes, talked about surprising Sarah with birthday parties and anniversary dinners. She was the one who'd helped me pick out the promise ring I'd given Sarah on our 4th anniversary. The ring Sarah had left on the kitchen counter the night she moved out. When Emma saw me in the cereal aisle, her face went through about 5 different emotions before settling on something between disappointment and disgust. Wow, she said, not bothering with hello. Looked terrible. I probably did. I'd been wearing the same jeans for 3 days and hadn't shaved in a week. I'd been living on delivery food and whatever I could microwave, which wasn't much since Sarah had taken most of the kitchen stuff. Emma, how is she? Is Sarah okay? Emma's laugh was sharp. Was Sarah okay? Are serious right now? I just want to know if she's destroyed. Emma's voice through the grocery store ambience like a blade. She cries herself to sleep every night. She barely eats. She can't concentrate at work. Her students keep asking why Mrs. Sarah seems so sad, and she doesn't know what to tell them because she can't explain that the person she trusted most in the world spent months lying to her face. Each word hit like a physical. I'd known I'd her, but hearing it described so plainly made it real in a way my guilt hadn't. I never meant for. Oh, never meant for what? Never meant to get caught. Because sure meant to lie. Sure meant to sneak around. Sure meant to make her feel crazy for noticing that her boyfriend had checked out of their relationship. People were starting to stare. An elderly woman with a shopping cart was pretending to read soup labels but clearly listening to every word. A teenage employee had stopped stocking shelves to watch the drama unfold. I didn't care. I deserved their judgment. Can't tell her I'm sorry. Can't tell her I want to talk. Emma shook her head slowly. Know what she told me last week? She said the hardest part isn't that cheated. It's that she doesn't know how long we're unhappy. She doesn't know if any of it was real. The plans made, the things said, the way looked at her. She's questioning 5 years of memories because couldn't be honest about being dissatisfied. That hit deeper than anything else. Because she was right. I had been dissatisfied, restless, looking for something different. But I'd never told her. Never gave her a chance to work on things together. Never respected her enough to be honest about what I was feeling. Instead, I'd let resentment build in secret while pretending everything was fine. Then I'd use that secret resentment to justify betraying her. She deserves better than sorry. Emma continued. She deserves better than. Then she walked away, leaving me standing in the cereal aisle with a store full of strangers who now knew exactly what kind of person I was. Word travels fast in small towns. By the end of the month everyone knew. The guys at work started treating me differently. Not mean, exactly, but distant, like I was contagious. Like whatever I had that made me capable of cheating might rub off on them. My buddy Marcus, who I'd known since high school, pulled me aside during lunch break. "Men, what we're thinking?" he asked. "Sarah's good people. Everyone loved two together." Bah. Marcus looked at me like I just said the sky was green. "Dude, screwing is forgetting an anniversary or leaving dishes in the sink. This isn't screwing, this is blowing on purpose." He was right, but I didn't want to hear it. I was already drowning in regret and self-hatred. I didn't need more people telling me what I already knew. "It just happened," I said weakly. "Just happened." Marcus's voice got louder. "For months, all those lies just happened. All those times chose to text another woman instead of talking to girlfriend just happened." Other guys were starting to listen now. The whole crew was watching me get dressed down in front of everyone. And I could see the judgment in their eyes. These were guys who went home to wives and girlfriends every night. Guys who understood that what I'd done wasn't just about me and Sarah. It was a betrayal of everything they believed about loyalty and commitment. "Look," Marcus said, lowering his voice but not backing down. "I get that relationships are hard. I get that sometimes feel trapped or bored or whatever. But talk about it, work on it, don't go behind someone's back, and then act surprised when it destroys them." That afternoon the foreman called me into his office. "We need to talk," he said, closing the door behind me. My stomach dropped. I'd been working for this company for 3 years. I was good at my job, reliable, well liked by clients. But I could see in his face that none of that mattered anymore. "I'm not firing," he said. Which should have been relief but somehow wasn't. "But I am taking off the Morrison job." The Morrison job was the biggest contract we'd had all year. A custom home build that would take 6 months and set me financially for the rest of the year. "Why?" He looked uncomfortable. "The Morrison specifically requested someone else. Word got around about situation they don't feel comfortable having in their home." I wanted to argue, to say that my personal had nothing to do with my professional abilities. But the words died in my throat because I understood. If I was building someone's dream home, the place where they'd raise their family, celebrate anniversaries, build it together, would I want someone who destroyed his own home working on it? "I'm sorry," the foreman continued. "I'll find other work for, but it's going to be smaller jobs. Repairs, maintenance, that kind of thing. At least until this blows over." If it ever blew over. I drove home that day feeling like a stranger in my own. The house felt different now, not just empty but hostile. Like the walls themselves were judging me. I found avoiding places where I might run into people I knew. The coffee shop where Sarah and I used to go for Sunday brunch. The hardware store where Jessica worked. The park where we'd walked our neighbor's dog when they were out of town. My world had shrunk to the size of my guilt. A month after Sarah left, I got a text from my mom. "Emma told me what happened, call me." I stared at that message for 2 hours before I worked the courage to dial her number. "What to do?" she said instead of hello. My mother had loved Sarah. They'd bonded over gardening and cooking shows and stories about my childhood that made me cringe with embarrassment. Sarah was the daughter she'd never had, and I could hear in her voice that I'd lost that for both of us. "Mom, I made some mistakes." "Mistakes?" Her voice was sharp with disappointment. "Honey, mistakes are using salt instead of sugar in cookies. This is a choice. A series of choices, and I raised better than this." She was crying now, which was somehow worse than if she'd been angry. That girl loved with her whole heart. She talked about future like it was the most beautiful thing in the world. She asked me about family recipes because she wanted to cook the things I made for growing. She was planning to be part of this family forever. Each word was a reminder of everything I'd thrown away. And destroyed it for what? For some excitement. For someone who didn't even want once were actually available. I couldn't answer because there was no good answer. There was no version of this story where I came out looking like anything other than a selfish fool who'd traded everything valuable for something. "I don't understand," she continued. "I don't understand how the son I raised could someone that way. I don't understand how could lie for so long. I don't understand how could be so cruel to someone who never did anything but love." Neither did I. The conversation ended with her telling me she loved me but was disappointed in who I'd become. That she hoped I'd figure out how to be better. But that it was too late to fix what I'd broken. After we hung, I sat in my empty living room and realized that Sarah hadn't just taken our things when she left. She'd taken my place in the family I'd grown in. She'd taken the respect of my coworkers. She'd taken my reputation in a town where I'd lived my whole. She'd taken the person I used to be, and left me with the person I'd chosen to become. That night, I drove past her sister's house where I knew she was staying. Her car was in the driveway and I could see warm light in the windows. I sat there for an hour, wanting to knock on the door. Wanting to try one more time to explain. But what was there to explain? That I'd been selfish. That I'd been cowardly. That I'd destroyed the best thing in me because I was too weak to either be honest about my feelings or strong enough to work through them. As I was about to leave, I saw her silhouette in the window. Just for a moment, just long enough to see that she looked smaller somehow. Fragile in a way she'd never looked when we were together. I'd done that to her. I'd taken someone strong and confident and loving and made her fragile. I drove home to my empty house and understood for the first time that some things once broken can never be fixed. Some trust shattered can never be rebuilt. Some love once betrayed can never recover. And some people, once they show who they really are, can never go back to being who they used to be. I was learning that consequences don't just punish, they change. They away everything thought were until all that's left is what actually are. And what I actually was someone who'd thrown away everything real for something that was never anything more than a fantasy.